Hi everyone, my name is Stacie. I am a dietitian with Village Supermarkets, and today we're going to be talking about ways to use different produce, specifically with our new Fresh Essentials produce box. So today we have a lot of different variety in front of us, and it's very easy to get creative in the kitchen, especially during this time when we're home more often. So different ways to use this produce, we'll start with some roasting vegetables. So you can use asparagus, we got sweet potatoes, regular potatoes, and onions that you can use. Put them on a sheet pan with a little olive oil, garlic, salt, and pepper. And you can also add some protein for a one-dish meal. So I like to go with either chicken or sausage. Put it on the sheet pan with the vegetables. Put it for 30 minutes in the oven, and then you're good to go, and you only have one dish to clean. Next up, we'll go with our fruit. We have a lot of different varieties of fruit, and this adds a nice burst of flavor to your day as well as the added nutrients. So I really like to use these in breakfast because they kind of wake you up with the flavor. So we have blueberries, we have grapes, apples, bananas, we also have oranges. You can make a nice fruit salad, or like I was saying before, top your oatmeal, Greek yogurt, or even cereal to kind of switch it up a little bit. And lastly, I'd like to highlight these crunchy vegetables we have that add a new dimension and flavor as well. So I like to start with a whole wheat wrap for lunch, maybe a little bit of hummus, feta cheese, and then the crunchy vegetables I like to add are carrots, grape tomatoes, lettuce. We have cucumbers and also more onions if you're an onion fan as well. And then you can add cold cuts too if you want a little bit of extra protein with that as well. And you have a hearty whole wheat wrap with lots of nice veggies in them to last you for an entire day until you get to dinner. So we're gonna make 3 different recipes together. And this one is gonna be really fun because we're gonna get to use our hands and get a little bit dirty in the kitchen. And we're gonna use a lot of the produce that we saw in the box. So we're gonna start with 2 different vegetables that I really like, and they're really easy to cook as well. So we're making tater tots, but these are healthier tater tots just because we're using different produce. Rather than a white potato, we're using a sweet potato and broccoli. So these have a lot of nutrients in them because they're different colors, right? So when something has more color, it has more nutrients in it. That's why we're using these. And it's a fun way to just use your hands and try something new, right? So I baked the sweet potatoes for about 30 minutes at 400 degrees. And then I also just boiled the broccoli a little bit so it got soft. And then I chopped it up so it measured out into a cup. So we need a cup, so that's about a head of broccoli, a medium-sized head of broccoli. And then I have the sweet potato in the skin still because I wanted to show you. So I wrapped it in foil and then I cut them in half so you can see it's a nice rich orange color. We're actually just gonna scrape that out and put it right into the bowl. I actually have an egg in there because we're gonna use the egg as well. So let me scrape this out into the bowl, and sometimes you can even just peel it off. So I think these, we can actually just peel the skin off like that, and we're gonna mash it in the bowl. So if you've mashed sweet potatoes before, you know it's very fun. You get to, use your muscles to mash it in the bowl. And then sometimes the skin will stick too, and that's okay. You can just scrape it out. So you just go like this and put it right in the bowl. The reason we don't want the skins in is just gonna make the tots a little tougher and harder to work with. And then I'm also gonna put the whole thing of broccoli in there as well. So that's a cup. It's about a cup each. I'll take another half of this. That one came out pretty easy. And then you're gonna wanna wipe your hands down. So I forgot to mention, the first thing we always do when we're cooking is wash our hands. So I did wash my hands before I started this. And you wash all the produce too. So we're just gonna mash this. If you have a potato masher, that's good. And you can use that. That might be a little better than the spatula. But however long it takes you, that's okay. Let me actually try to use the spoon. There we go, that's better. So basically we're gonna mix this together until it forms a dough-like consistency. So when you mush it with your hands, it should feel almost like dough, like you're making bread or pizza dough, if you've ever done that before. So right now it's not totally incorporated because we're gonna use our hands later. So you can see it's just still, you can still tell it's sweet potatoes and broccoli. So now we're gonna add about 1/3 cup of Parmesan cheese. That'll give it the salty flavor. And then we're gonna add breadcrumbs. So these are whole wheat, these are whole wheat breadcrumbs. And this is also 1/3 cup. So it's 1/3 cup and 1/3 cup. And then we're gonna add the egg. So the reason we add the egg is because it's gonna hold the tots together. Just like if you were making veggie burgers, you need something to hold it together or bind, and that's what the egg does. So we're gonna crack the egg and make sure you don't get any of the shell in there. You can set that to the side. And then since your hand's already dirty from the egg, you can just go ahead and stick your hand in and start mixing it all together. And that'll really help to get the sweet potato totally mashed if you didn't use a masher before. So when I'm done mixing it, it should be all incorporated. You'll still be able to tell that it's sweet potato and broccoli, but it'll be more of a dough. It'll be more of a mixture that's all together and smooth. And it's okay if there's some bigger pieces in there that may not have gotten mushed all the way, because the egg's gonna hold them together. Okay. So let me wipe down my hands and then I'll show you what this looks like. There we go. It's always good to have some paper towels or a rag nearby to wipe down your hands, especially when it gets kind of messy like this. It's almost like if you were making cookies as well. The same rule applies here. Wipe your hands before you put them in something else. So if you see that, you can see now it's all mashed together. So we do want to add more spices though, because we do have saltiness from the Parmesan, but you want a little bit more flavor to taste more like a tater tot. So I'm adding about a teaspoon of garlic powder, just a little sprinkle. Then we have some onion powder as well, same thing, teaspoon. And then we do have some salt from the cheese, but we'll add a little tiny bit more, maybe like a little half of a teaspoon. And then some black peppercorn that you can grind up too. And then if you want to add some spice, you could add chili powder. You're gonna mix this again. Just make sure all the spices are in there. All right, so this is all good to go. You don't need to let it rest or anything like that. It is cooled because I let the sweet potatoes, I should have mentioned, I let the sweet potatoes and the broccoli cool a little bit after they cooked so that it wasn't super hot so that they could stick together. So you're gonna get a baking sheet and you're gonna wanna line it with parchment paper so that the tots don't stick. You can grease it with olive oil if you want, any kind of oil spray you have, but the parchment paper should keep it from sticking. So what you're gonna do now is you're going to form them with your hands into a little tot shape. So if you haven't seen a tater tot before, it's almost like a cylinder, like that. That is kind of a big one. So if you want a smaller one, you can make them smaller. It depends how big you like the tater tots. And again, I'm finding some chunks in there that are a little bigger. Just smush it down with your hand so that it doesn't stick out when you're baking them. So I'm gonna try to make a smaller one. And you're just gonna line them next to each other. Just make sure they're not sticking together, like that. And then I'm going to, once the oven is heated to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, I did preheat mine. You're going to put them in there for 22 to 25 minutes, and you're gonna flip them halfway through. So once it gets to about 10 or 12 minutes, you're gonna flip the tater tots over so that both sides get nice and golden brown. So I'm gonna finish up doing this, put them in the oven, and then I will show you the end result and how to use them or how to eat them. I personally like ketchup. You could do mustard, barbecue sauce, or you can make your own dip if you so wish, like a Greek yogurt dip like we're going to make next. We are going to start with our fruit dip and our fruit skewers. So this is a really good snack. It's really easy to make. And the dip can last up in the fridge for a few days because it's just yogurt and then some added cocoa powder, vanilla, honey, and cinnamon. So it's really easy. I use this all the time in my kids' classes and they always love it. And you can dip fruit in it. You can dip graham crackers, even pretzels for a nice snack. So we're starting with half a cup of Greek yogurt. So the Greek yogurt is unsweetened, so we can use it for the sweet and savory dip because we're adding sugar to it already, so it does not need to have sugar in the ingredient list. So we have half a cup of that, and then we're gonna add to it a tablespoon of honey. So I pre-did it just because it's a little hard to measure honey. I have it in here already, so I'm gonna put that in here. And we're just gonna put everything in to mix it, and it's a really good way to get the kids involved because all you do is dump it and mix it. So it's very simple. So I'm gonna set that to the side. Now I'm gonna add 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract. So that'll give it the sweet flavor without adding sugar. And just be careful you don't overspill that either. All right. And then we're gonna add the cocoa powder. So that's gonna be a full tablespoon cocoa powder. And that'll give it a chocolatey flavor. It's okay if it doesn't all come out. And then cinnamon is kind of as desired. Some kids really like it and some kids, don't like cinnamon as much. It says about a teaspoon, so I just sprinkle a little bit in there. And you can taste it and adjust it as needed. So you're just gonna mix this all together. And it's gonna start to turn chocolatey. And just make sure if you're doing this with kids, you do it nice and slow so the cocoa powder doesn't come up into your face. And make sure you scrape down the sides. And sometimes kids are used to chocolate being sweeter. So if you feel like you need to add more sugar, you can do a little bit more honey. Or you can even use maple syrup. Okay, so this dip is done. It smells delicious. I'm gonna set these to the side. And that's that. And then we have the skewer set up. So it depends how many kids you have and how many you wanna do ahead of time. I just picked out 4 and I'm gonna cut up the fruit and start putting them on the skewers. So this is another way to get kids to be creative in the kitchen and get them to eat some fruit if they're not necessarily fruit eaters. So I'm actually gonna start cutting up the fruit first. So this is something you may wanna do on your own without the kids. And I'm just gonna you can make any shapes you want with the apples. I think I'm gonna make slices and then cut the slices in half. As long as they can stick on the skewers and stay, then you're good to go. You can also chop them up into squares or cubes if you like things to look a little more uniform. Okay. All right, so I have halved of halves in slices, so about this size. And then we're gonna set those to the side. And then a banana, mine is on the greener side, which is good, because then it'll stick better on the skewer. So make sure they're not too ripe or else it'll just fall off the skewer. Set the peel to the side. And then for this, you can just do regular, maybe 1/2 inch to whole inch slices, which I'll show you in a second. So if you have some kids who are a little bit older, you can give them like a knife that's not super sharp, or you can even order kid-safe knives online. I know I've had requests for that from some parents. It's about this size thickness. And that'll go on there nice and easy. And then for grapes, you can actually stick the whole grape on or you can do halves. I think I'm gonna try the whole and see what it looks like. All right, so be careful with younger kids with the pointy end, but you can have them arrange it however you want. So I would start with the apples just because they're a little bit harder to get on and just stick them through. Take some blueberries. And when I've done this in, library classes or in the store, kids really like to get creative with the different sizes of everything. So I'll try to get a little creative here as well. Let's put some grapes on. And if you have other fruit that you need to get used up, you can use that as well. Anything that sticks on the skewer. So I probably should have put another apple, but there's one of them. And then when the kids are eating this, you can give them a little bowl of the dip and then just have them dip it in. They can have their own bowl so they don't double dip, of course. But it'll give them some power of creativity in the kitchen, so they'll want to make more and they'll want to get more involved when you're making other things. Okay, I'm gonna make a few more and then I will show you a picture of the end result. Okay, we're gonna get started with our next recipe. So we did the sweet kebab already. Now we're gonna do the savory one. So this one is going to be with all of the vegetables that we had, the crunchy vegetables that we have that can stick on a skewer. So you can use onion in this as well, but I left it out just because I don't think that kids would really like the flavor of a bitter onion. You could roast them if you want to do an extra step, but this is just going to be a raw skewer. So we have some dill here, that's gonna go in our dip. And then for the skewer, we have grape tomatoes, carrots. We actually have this whole head of lettuce that we're gonna cut into chunks. So I already tested it out. It's almost like an iceberg lettuce where you can cut a chunk and stick it on there. And then we're also gonna use cucumber as well. So we're gonna cut that up into slices once we're done with the dip. So the dip is going to start with the Greek yogurt again. So we're using the same exact Greek yogurt that we had last time, except we're not adding sugar this time. We're gonna add more spices, savory spices. So dill is gonna be the herb that we're gonna add. If you have dry dill and you don't have fresh, that's okay too. We're gonna add about a tablespoon of that. So I already chopped it up a little bit, so you can have the kids or anyone sprinkle it on there. So I'm gonna use all of that tablespoon, the whole tablespoon. And again, it's kind of your taste. If the kids don't like it, maybe have them try it first. And if they don't like it, maybe add a little and say, try that. And then if they like it, you can add more. You can have them cut it up as well. So we're gonna mix that in. And then we're just gonna add a little bit of olive oil. So this is gonna be a teaspoon of olive oil. So a very small amount, just to give it another savory layer. Overflowed a little bit, but that's okay. We're gonna mix that in. And then the spices. So I'm gonna use garlic powder, onion powder, and then a little salt and pepper. So it's supposed to be a teaspoon, so just a little sprinkle of that. That's the garlic. And then the onion, same thing. And then for the salt and pepper, it's more of going to be a taste, just because we don't really need to add a ton of sodium to this. So maybe 1, 2 grinds of that, and the same with the pepper. And they should be nice. The kids actually really like to use those. Again, it's the whole, power in the kitchen. Giving them something to do makes them feel a sense of entitlement towards their food, and then they're more inclined to eat it. So that's pretty much it for this dip. As you can see, the dill is incorporated in there, and all the spices. Has a very aromatic flavor. And this is gonna be a good one for the vegetable skewers, just because all of the colors with the skewer go really well with this as well when you dip it in. So I'm gonna set that to the side. Make sure nothing's in the way here so I don't knock it over. And then we'll get started on the skewers. So I did already test this one out just to make sure that I could, get that on there securely. So I would say start with the lettuce, just because when you have the chunks, sometimes they break apart and the kids might get frustrated. So tell them that it's okay as long as they could stick. You can even do one layer at a time if you feel like it. So I'm just gonna use my discretion, try to hold them together and cut chunks like that and stick them on the bottom. So we're gonna start, this is the outer layer of the lettuce. That's the one that kind of holds it together. So I'm gonna stick it through there. And again, just be careful with the skewers. And then there you go, that's the bottom. So it's almost like a salad on a stick. I guess you could call it that as well. This one kind of broke apart. As you can see, it's a smaller piece, but if you hold it together, you can do the same thing of sticking it from the back and just making sure it goes through all the layers. It looks like I missed a few, but that's okay because it still has layers on it. So you're gonna start with the lettuce, and you can put more layers on there if you'd like. And then I'm just going to move this out of the way to cut the cucumbers. And if you want to change up the color, you can probably do the tomatoes next. So let's actually do that so it looks nice and colorful. It's okay if they're not perfect. Again, if the lettuce comes down, you can actually maybe put a tomato on the bottom to keep it up as well. And then the cucumbers, you're just gonna cut off the ends because we don't really like those parts. And then probably a 1/4 to a 1/2 inch slice. And then if you want to do cubes, you can too, but this thickness is fine. Almost like a coin, like a thicker coin. And then you can put that on as well. And you can do as many layers as you want. And then I would say add the carrot last, just because the carrots are pretty tough, so they're hard to get on the stick. So let me add a little more cucumber. And then I'm gonna add the carrot to the top. So you got a nice thick layer of cucumber. And then just be careful with the carrot. You might wanna, if you're doing this with kids, you might wanna help them just stick it on top like a little hat at the top. And there you have it, a veggie skewer. So that is going to easily be dipped into this. And the way that you can plate it, and I'll show you in the picture overlap of this, but you can just put it in a little dip on the side in a bowl and then have them dip it in. And as they go down, you can have them push it up so that the skewer, the top of the skewer isn't, you know, going into their mouth, or they can eat it like this and dip it like that as well. So really easy. You can do this with any other vegetables that you have that would go in the skewer in the house. It's a great way to get kids to eat vegetables. And it's a fun and creative way to just keep the kids entertained during this time. Okay, now for dessert, which is obviously the best part of every meal. This is a healthy dessert, so it's going to be really easy. The only thing you should do ahead of time is pick out your toppings so that no one's fighting over toppings, everyone picks their own, and it's fun for everyone. So I picked a couple different ones. I have coconut flakes. I have get your favorite granola. This one is a strawberry granola with low sugar. Some mini chocolate chips. And then some pumpkin seeds. You can roast them ahead of time, or you can do your favorite nuts. And then I also have honey and cinnamon. But you can mix and match your toppings and pick what you would like. So using the produce that we have in the box, you start with a banana. So I actually pre-cut this one. So I'm just gonna slice it open a little bit bigger because it's a banana split. It's a healthy banana split is basically what we're making. So you can cut it in half or you can leave it connected a little bit. I sort of cut mine in half completely and just opened it up. And leave that to the side. And then I have some grapes and blueberries that are gonna go on top as well. Again, you can pick whichever produce you like the best. For the grapes, these are pretty big, so I'm actually going to cut them in half. It also is fun because it looks a little bit fancier when you cut them in half, and you can make a whole display. So however you want to, or your kids want to, they can cut up the grapes in half and place them around the bananas. And usually they like to get fun with this, so sometimes they'll make faces on the bananas or a little scene, anything that they are in the mood to do. So I'm going to put them along the sides. And then I have a ton of blueberries because we get 2 pints of blueberries in the box. So I'm actually just going to pour those over the top. And if there's a stem, just make sure you pick it out. And these are pre-washed. And then I'm going to start with my toppings. So I think I'm going to save the honey and cinnamon for last because that'll look like a nice glaze over the top. But this is what we have so far. The grapes, the blueberries, and then the split banana in the middle. So I think I'm going to start with the coconut because that adds a nice crunchy flavor. Just going to drizzle it over the top. And again, you can use, this is unsweetened, but it still has that coconut flavor to it. Or you can toast it in the oven for a little bit, or the toaster oven, and give it that nice smoky flavor as well. This is the crunchy granola with strawberries in it. And you can even do this, since it's so healthy, you could do this for fun breakfast too. It doesn't necessarily have to be a dessert. And then some pumpkin seeds. This also adds a really good color to it. So it kind of looks like it's a little bit of a rainbow. And then of course the chocolate chips. That's always everybody's favorite. Every time I have a class and I bring chocolate chips, that's usually the one that everyone asks for more of. And then just a sprinkle of cinnamon over the top. Give it another flavor. The more you add, the more flavor it's gonna have, but then you don't wanna overdo it too much because then it might be a little bit of a mess. And then I'm just gonna drizzle some honey over the top like this. You could also do that with, that's about a teaspoon. You can do that with your favorite chocolate sauce. Just make sure the ingredients are pretty clean and there's not a ton of sugar in it. And then what I would like to do as well is dollop a little bit of Greek yogurt on the top as well, because you already have the sugar in here, so you can use the same Greek yogurt that we used for the skewers before. And there you have it, a nice hearty bowl of banana split. Thank you so much for watching this video. I had a great time making all of the food, and I hope you guys have a good time making them at home as well. If you have any other nutrition questions or concerns, please reach out to me by email. You can also reach out to the library if you have any questions about their program. I want to thank them so much for adding me to this programming. I know they're doing a lot of virtual things right now, so make sure you check out their page. And also check out the ShopRite of Chester Facebook page with any updates or anything going on there. I want to take a moment to thank all the healthcare and frontline workers. Thank you so much for all you're doing to keep us safe and healthy. Health is very important, as you can tell by this video, so I want to make sure that I can thank the people who are really helping us the most right now. And thank you so much for tuning into this video. I hope you have a great time making the recipes.